During this entire month, our endeavor would be to, through various events, identify the potential of drones, the status of the drone industry in the country, globally where India stands, and what are the growth potentials. Today, the topic is very exciting: passenger drones. Now, when I say passenger drones, I have two very extreme views. One side says, well, that is sci fi, something which comes from the Marvel movies. The other side says, well, and this is the reality, and it is happening as we speak. I am very privileged that today our guests come from both the sides. One side is the government, which says, yes, it is the future and we need to address it, but with caution. The other side says, it's already happening. So, without any further delay, I would like to now introduce the panel. On my left is Ms. Kanika Tekriwal. Kanika, besides being the winner of Women Transforming India Awards, a flagship initiative of Niti Aayog, is the owner of Jet Set Go, which she likes to be referred to as Uber of the skies. So basically, she is into the flying business and has big plans to venture into the passenger drone space. Next to Kanika, we have Mr. Rajiv Bansal, who is the Secretary of Ministry of Civil Aviation, and I have known Sir for a very long time, and I know him for his very proactive and extremely progressive way of functioning. He has held many important positions in the past, and under his leadership, we have seen the regulatory framework in the drone ecosystem really transform. Next to Mr. Bansal, we have Captain Nikunj Parashar, who is the founder and CEO of Sagar Defense Engineering, and he is one of our promising startups. He has been recognized by the Ministry of Electronics as one of the 10 best startups in the country in the electronics system design and manufacturing in strategic electronics sector. So welcome to all our very distinguished panelists to Niti Aayog in the Experience Studio for Drones.
Thank you.
So let me start with Mr. Bansal, being the representative of the government. So sir, passenger drones are both fascinating and also causes a lot of worry in some people. You don't want people to be falling down, you have some security concerns and various issues. So given the current status of drone adoption, do you think it is the right time to talk about passenger drones?
Of course, why not? Why not? Drones is a very exciting space. It's an exciting space globally, it's an exciting space in our country. So today, what we are seeing is a proliferation of companies, startups, companies who wish to enter into this space. And the government has done a number of steps, has initiated a number of steps by way of policy reform, by way of regulations, which have eased the entry of startups and companies into this space. Be it the drone regulations which came out, the airspace map which came out, the air traffic management regulations, the certification process, the pilot certification process. There's been a host of reform measures which have been taken over the last 8 months. This space is so exciting that, believe it or not, what we think of in the mind today is a reality tomorrow. And I'm very confident that the next couple of years we will see India emerging as the drone hub of the world. Now, in the next few years, we'll see a lot of small drones, and their capacity and capability getting enhanced, and their applications being widened to a very wide spectrum, cutting across health, education, mining, agriculture, land record mapping, cadastral survey, etc., etc. And with this growth, this technology is growing like on Moore's law basis. So what is happening in the next 5 years will multiply manyfold in the coming 5 years beyond, let's say 2027, and we can expect that passenger drones will become a reality in India by 2030. In fact, globally, if you see, there's already passenger drones which are being used by the defense forces in America, I believe. And for civilian use, there is a certification process globally. So there is the EASA regulations, the FAA regulations, and the certification process. So this is a time-consuming process, and for passenger drones and civilian side, there's obviously safety is of prime concern. So this will evolve as we go along, but I'm very confident that this will become a reality in matter of years, not in matter of decades.
So thank you, sir, for giving the perspective. Now coming to the private sector, Kanika, you yourself personally as well as your company is highly invested in passenger drones, and in various fora you have been very passionate about it. So you have heard sir talk about it. Now currently, where do you think we stand in terms of launching such a service market in India?
Thank you, Anam, for having me here. And it's amazing to see the government share their thought process, which is so forward-thinking and so I would say advanced. 2 years ago, when we spoke about passenger drones, when we went and spoke to the government, our customers, investors, I remember someone turned around and told me, ki, you're not living in the Jetsons, Kanika, come back to Earth. Someone else said, I'm living out the Star Wars. And now we've transformed to a time where the government is being so supportive. I mean, I would never think that we would be sitting at Niti Aayog discussing passenger drones as a reality. So, I mean, that just goes to show how forward we have come, as a country, as a nation, and as people in this. Having said that, I think, we cannot consider India to be a geographical landscape like any other country. And that's one of our biggest learnings in the past 4 years of trying to map the country, trying to operate helicopters like drones, etc. I mean, our landscape, our geography, our temperament, our conditions are very, very different. So I think, India is not going to evolve into passenger drones the way the West is. You're going to have Indian products using Indian solutions to fly Indian people. And that's the trajectory we've taken after a lot of research, having visited a lot of OEMs abroad, having seen a lot of things happening abroad. India is a very typical environment where we'll have to create air corridors, where we'll have to create a very different way of running. You've got, no-fly zones, you've got defense services, etc. So I personally believe, sir says 2030. Internally in the company, we say 2028. We're going to make them a reality. So I think we are very well, on the track of doing this. I don't see it to be a sci-fi or a far-flung reality anymore. And I think the country's geared up to fly. You've got a great young population. We did a lot of test trials on helicopters, asking the young population how comfortable would they be flying in a machine that's not piloted. And the responses we received were amazing. So I think we're well on track.
Thank you. So coming to Nikunj, you heard the perspective of the government coming from sir and from Kanika as a entrepreneur. You are essentially a technology person. And what is your take on it? If we just purely look at it from the technology side, do you think we are kind of on track? And what are the gaps which you find in this? From just looking at it from the feasibility, from the technology aspect.
So, ma'am, first of all, thank you once again to be part of this panel. And taking a cue from Bansal sir and Kanika. So, sir said 2030, Kanika said 2028, I said 2023. But then, it will not be the commercial part.
Yeah.
But already, as I speak, we are already flying for the Indian Navy. We have built up, and you speak about the technology. So, there is a project which is already happening where we are lifting up to 100 kgs for warships. Now, this is something, and across the globe also, if you see, and bigger players in the market, all these technologies have been developed in the defense market for the defense tech companies, and that comes into the commercial side. Important aspect when it comes on the commercial side is the safety aspects, because you want to have a person there coming in. And overall, the business market, Kanika would know much more than me, is close to $241 billion, which is divided into 100 billion in passenger and around 141 billion in logistics. So any which ways, if you look into it, the technology aspect comes especially with respect to safety approvals, manufacturing processes, and the design aspect. these are three things which we always need to keep in mind if we are looking at an urban air mobility aspect coming in, especially in India. As an Indian, we've been very good in software service providers, but when it comes to core deep techs and special technologies like this, it's still a long way to go, and we see. But the current support and the policy changes which has happened in the drone industry itself has enabled technology players like us to really work more hard to go to our strength. So gaps are there, but I see the technology part where the defense and the government giving a handholding very strongly. You would see trial runs starting from 2023 to 24 onwards. Important is handholding of the government and private players in this sector like Kanika to come and partner with technology players like us and say, look, there is a business case. With the government body coming in, hey, look, if this is your business case, how do we make it viable? How do we make it a reality? I think if we can mend these gaps up, then there is an opportunity. But if that doesn't happen, then it's a very long process.
Absolutely. So a business model is required, some light at the end of the tunnel, which will kind of, and that light is being provided by the government as well. So both the developers as well as the operators and the business side of it, they are all kind of are very cued on that. So my next question, sir, will be for you to just ask, has your ministry started talking about the infrastructure support which a sector like passenger drones may require? Is that thought started?
Definitely. We've started the thought process on it. So as I said, globally this is an exciting space, and globally the air traffic management system around this is still an evolving space. We'll need to see how this will pan out, because as my colleague very rightly said, when you come into the aviation space for civilians, the prime focus has to be safety. In fact, that is what you were alluding to in your initial remarks also. So safety is paramount when we talk of civilian air transport systems. And globally, we will need to see how the infrastructure, the technology, the capabilities will converge together to ensure that there is a seamless experience available for users. Now, fundamentally, what is a passenger drone? It's an electric unmanned vehicle which will take off from A point and will land at B point. The distance between the 2 points could be initially not very large, maybe 30-40 kilometers, maybe even lesser. The use case, my colleague talked of the business model. A good business model may be in urban areas, and that's why we talk of urban air mobility, and congested areas, people moving from the airport to downtown areas where it's taking time to move on by way of road transport. These are the use cases that will develop. People say that will it work? Will it be too expensive? Will there be a clientele for it? So a country like India, and with a vibrant economy like India, and an affluent economy like India, where there is a spectrum, there is a wide spectrum of people and affluence, there will be a niche which it will cater to initially, and then the technology will get stabilized, will get multiplied, and will get popularized, and then the costs will come down, and then it will become a means of mass mobility. Now, you asked the question about infrastructure. So what kind of infrastructure is required for this? Fundamentally, actually not much infrastructure is required. You require a helipad which has electric charging capacity or capability, and I would feel that going forward, all buildings which will come up will be equipped with this, and that is something that will require modification in the town planning, in the urban rules and regulations. So there's a lot of convergence required between the technology providers and the local municipal bodies to make this a reality. Having said that, I'm still very confident that it's not very far away that all this will happen, because there's a huge demand from the consumers. There's a government which is supporting this ecosystem by way of rules and regulations and policy, and also we are providing incentives. So, for example, we have a production-linked incentive scheme in which we provide incentives, financial incentives for new companies to come up in this area, and this helps make the business case easier. And with a very, very vibrant startup community in our country, and a lot of technological developments happening around IoT, big data, better communication technology, better 5G, better 6G, which will happen. All these will enable these devices to become a reality in the foreseeable future.
Thank you, sir. So, when we talk about, say, support infrastructure, we talk about a robust manufacturing sector, service provider sector, pilots, and already you have referred to, the various steps taken by the government in this direction. That obviously, and the way you are talking about use cases and convergence, so that shows the government is obviously already thinking a lot about how to make it possible. So, having said that, sir, I would now like to kind of ask our two other panelists just 2 points each. If you feel you have the government at your amidst you, so this is a golden opportunity. 2 points each which you feel are now required to to improve the readiness, infrastructure readiness of ecosystem, which you would like to bring to the notice of the government. You won't have a better opportunity than this.
So now, at the risk of getting into a lot of trouble with my current business, I'm still going to be very candid. I think we need a separate regulatory body to make something like this happen. Unfortunately, the current regulatory body, as amazing as it is, I've been working with them for the last 10 years to fly our planes. I don't think, we have the right combination of education, background, forward thinkingness required to make something like this work. We need people who find that one reason to make things work instead of 100 reasons as to, why not to say no. And I don't know I'm going to get into trouble, but I'm just going to put it out there. And I think the second thing that's required is we need to to make passenger drones a reality. It's not just the aviation ministry or the regulator that can make it happen. This is one of the few things in the world where you require every single part of the government, the country, like Sir said, the municipality, etc. So I think that, at the government level and maybe at a NITI level or the PMO level, there needs to be a committee formed which has your defense services, which has the aviation ministry, which has your people who control town and country planning, etc., who can come up with a master plan of what will it take for India as a nation to make passenger drones a reality. What we see happen more often than not is, we go to the ministry, they're extremely helpful, they say, okay, we'll get this done. Now, if I want to take off from Pune airport, I need the permission from the Air Force for my plane to take off. So then I need to go to the Air Force to make that happen. Or if I want to construct something or park something, I need someone else's permission. So I think it's very important that every single government body work cohesively to actually say, okay, if this is what we have to do, this is what each of us need to do and make it happen.
Nikunj, anything you would like to add?
Ma'am, on the technology point of view, because this is the business case what she speaks about, but on the technology point of view, we see is the first way your passenger drones are going to fly is with a pilot on board.
Yeah.
And I can take a cue from my daily travel. If you take a Ola and Uber, generally there's one passenger sitting in it. It's never 2 or 3, it's generally one person. So the first passenger drones will take off with one pilot and one person. So we need to set up actually the drone pilot training how we are doing it. We should already start looking onto those lines under the ministry, like how can we have a VTOL pilot training could happen, and can be a course designed for it. Parallelly, when you're designing that across, also you should talk, I feel the ministry should come on board and get and form another body with these manufacturers who are actually working on these product lines or these problem statements to solve the VTOL use cases. On a technology front, if that happens, it also gives a confidence as a manufacturer that we understand what framework is going to come in, and we can understand the pros and cons and because there's going to be a lot of learning from our side. Whereas this when you look at a European, you look at a FAA in that case, they are quite ahead on that front. Whereas we go in a reactive mode, so they're going to learn a lot. And as rightly said, that our environment, our atmospheres, our terrain is completely different. It is not exactly same which is there in Europe or the Northern America or the US, matter of fact. So if these two things are looked after, I think that can solve a lot of problem statement and get the urban air mobility kicking in very fast.
So, I'm curious. Like in airlines, you have this bird problem. What will happen with birds when you have these drones?
So yes, ma'am, it's a very fantastic question. And now when you look at an airline which is flying at 700 or 800 kilometers per hour with big twin engines which are sucking in a lot of air, and these birds find it very difficult. What we are looking at here is these VTOLs flying in a very dense environment with actually birds they are coming. But these VTOLs do not suck in the air the way these airlines suck in. The amount of noise also which is created from them is in much lower decibel. And these lower decibel it doesn't come in when the craft has passed you. It actually you hear the craft coming across to you. So you'll find actually bird dispersing out. How many times have you heard that a bird hitting a drone? Never happens. It's a lie. It's somebody telling you my drone was hit by a bird.
It's not physically possible.
It's not possible. So the rotors going in and the way they're transforming in the winds, it's not going to happen. Plus, on a technology front, what I would look at is a fault tolerance mechanism. So that means if it's something like a Volvo copter or something of mine which has 16 rotors on board, the way the battery management system, the power electronics and the rotor would be positioned in such a way, for God forbid example, you have an accident, still the drone keeps flying. So that's where it kicks in with Sir said. It's when it comes to commercial, the safety comes in. And this is what the regulatory body has to decide, that what kind of safety standards can come in. I think this is a good time for India to come out and tell the world, hey, look, this is our standards,
exactly,
and this is how we are going to do it. And I believe we could be fourth coming into it. The way our urban placement is fixed in airport is there at every 30 kilometers in a metro, and you have a lot of places. So our scaling rate is also very high if this kicks in. So we can be foremost actually a player which can come in the world stage and say, hey, look, this is what we are going to do. This is how a VTOL should operate, and this is how a VTOL should be manufactured.
If I can just add to that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but currently we are working on a very, very archaic set of rules. I'll give you a simple example. An airplane that is approved by FAA, approved by EASA, comes to India, and it needs to be approved by the DGCA again. Which puts us way behind in the ladder. Like there's a airplane that's been flying in India for 18 years. It still has not been type certified by the DGCA. So anyone who's importing it is now spending about 1 year and millions of dollars getting that airplane type certified. If we're going to work on that regulatory system, we're not going to be the ones who are going to be making changes in this space. So which is why I say that why can't we for a change think of India being first? Why do we want to copy the FAA? Why do we want to copy the EASA? We have the smartest minds. You go look inside FAA, EASA, or half the world's pilots, they're Indians. Half the world's engineers are actually Indians who've been exported from here. I send my plane from here to Basel for repair, and I find an Indian working on it. And I'm like, why am I doing this? So I personally think, to be very forward thinking, we need to focus on the fact that let's put India first. Let India give the regulation to the world. Let India give case studies to the world. Let India do the first test flights. Instead of us, piggybacking on what the US is doing or what Germany is doing.
Absolutely. So that is actually also, sir, the debate which we are having in NITI, that we lost a number of, good opportunities. And we are actually in that catching up mode. Now in this digital, in this cyber physical world that we live in, India we feel can be the global leader in several spaces, because now we can set the framework, we can set the protocols, we can determine what the standards will be. By doing all that in different sectors, I think we can be the global leader, and we have the best minds, as all of you have said. Say UPI we have kind of led, but we could not kind of take UPI and in a way commercialize may not be the right word, but be the leader. It has been copied. So I think here the opportunity is to be a leader. It may not happen even 23 perhaps use cases on a restricted civilian, 28, 30 between them, I don't think it makes much of a difference. 2 years
Correct.
here and there.
Correct.
But whatever. But I think that's an important point about training, about setting standards, about various other things. Do you think that we should aggressively start working on it and use our ecosystem, our very robust startups, our IITs, our other tech institutes to start talking about in this drone space, what is it that we can kind of identify that okay, this is something which where the competition is less, or there is a space where we can be leaders, and then take it forward from there.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Technology is obviously a great disruptor, but it's also a great opportunity for a country like ours. Let's look at aircraft manufacturing. Traditionally, there are a few large companies, one in Europe and one in US, which manufacture aircraft, and globally, most countries have followed that. There are two big leaders globally, and other countries are leap years behind them. But emerging technologies like drones give us an opportunity to not only to be ahead of the curve, to be at the curve along with Western nations. And the point that Kanika was making, this process starts with setting standards, because standards prescribe the path for the future.
Correct.
And if any country, any nation can set the standards, then you're on the path to victory. You're on the path to the pole position. But setting standards is easier said than done. You must have the capability, the competence, the technological capability, the bandwidth to be able to do that. And that is why I would always feel in this area of drones, where we have an opportunity staring us in the eye, we must be able to collaborate with the industry and the academia. Because the industry and the academia will actually be able to give us a product, will actually be able to take us to the cutting edge of technology, and with that enablement, the government can actually help in setting the standards. So the key thing I would say is for all of us to collaborate in this aspect. And I would wholeheartedly agree with Kanika when she said that there is a need for a mindset change in the regulatory framework. So one of the things that I believe in is that minimize regulation first itself. Why do we even want a separate regulator? Why should there be a large number of aspects which are regulated by a regulator? For example, I may illustrate by saying that we used to have a remote pilot license. Now we don't have it. We have made it into a certification process. So we have these drone schools, and they themselves are empowered to give this certification. And it's all electronically done. So there is no need for a regulatory interface with a regulator itself. So we must minimize the regulatory interface, number one. But at the same time, there will be some need of regulators. Once we minimize the zone of oversight by regulators, select regulators, select persons who have a forward-thinking approach, and build up a regulatory structure which is forward-looking, forward-thinking, and always ahead of the curve. As a country, we are also learning by experience, and we're happy to work with all our stakeholders, be it the industry or the technology service providers, and see how we can build up such a regulatory framework. In fact, I have also been a big proponent of officials and the industry having an open door system where there is immersion. In our ministry itself, in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, we are starting off a program where officials from the government work in the private sector for some time, and officials from the private sector get an opportunity to work in the government. And on the back of such experiments, we will be able to create regulators which are forward-thinking and forward-looking. Thank you.
That's such a so good to hear these things. It's really music to my ear. And actually, you resonate what your minister also said. Unfortunately, you could not attend that launch. You were traveling. There was an industry representative who raised the same issue, and the minister said, "We are trying to get out of kind of regulating you. Why do you want us to regulate you really in this way?" So that was really great, and we would like to end on that note, very promising note. Unless our two young colleagues here have something very emergent with which they want to not only bring it to the notice of our viewers, but also you kind of utilize the presence of Secretary Civil Aviation to raise it. So let us start this time with Nikunj, and then we'll end with Kanika.
I think that the support is tremendous, and the way it has shaped up, and we speak to people outside also. This thing is doing very great on the drone system part. For us, and this is one point of concern which always comes into my mind is when we are also looking at this medium to create employment. Are we looking at also the wages being maintained and a minimum wages would come in? Because tomorrow when these drone pilots or even our VTOL pilots kick in, can these drone pilots become a VTOL pilot? So something on those lines we should start thinking from now on, and this is one of my concerns which always kicks in, where the government is giving so much to the industry. Is industry also ready to take that?
Kanika?
No, I've done all the damage I need to do. But I think I'll just say one thing. I've been working in this industry since I was 16 years old. That was my first time I started working in aviation. And I've never had a more forward-thinking ministry to work with. I never had a more easier ministry to work with, and never had more access ever. So I think I'm not saying this to praise anyone or anything, but I was telling my team, I've been very vocal about this at FICCI, at the air show, every time. I think there's no better time than now to be in aviation. Because I think what you guys are doing is tremendous. I don't think you can ever have these sort of panel discussions 4 years ago or whatever. So I'm very grateful to you for whatever value you've been adding.
Thank you.
In your success lies our success. It's not the other way around.
Thank you.
So on that note, I would like to thank all my panelists for taking out time. We wanted to not do it virtually, but do it in person in the Experience Studio. So I thank you all for taking out time, coming to Niti Aayog, being with us. And I hope our viewers have enjoyed this interaction. Adieu.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.